Ayaan al-Zahiri didn't tolerate incompetence. At just 35, he had transformed his late father's modest oil distribution business into a powerful international empire based out of Manhattan. With sharp cheekbones, a precisely trimmed beard, and dark eyes that gave nothing away, he commanded every room with quiet force. His schedule was brutal, his standards unforgiving. "You're fired," he said in a flat voice to the middle-aged man standing stiffly across from his desk. "But, sir, you mistranslated a key clause in a $50 million deal. I have no patience for carelessness. Collect your belongings. Security will escort you out in 15 minutes. It was the 5th translator he'd fired in 6 months. Before the office door even clicked shut, Ayaan's personal assistant, Rami Saeed, poked his head in. His tone was careful. "Sir, we may have found someone new. A graduate student from NYU's Middle Eastern Studies program, fluent in Arabic, multiple dialects, and has impressive references. Would you like to meet her?" Ayaan tapped his pen twice against the desk. "Bring her in today." Clara Monroe cursed under her breath as she sprinted down West 57th Street, dodging tourists and cabs. Her tote bag was overflowing with notebooks. Her resume was crumpled. And to top it off, the cheap corner shop coffee she'd picked up had just splashed across the front of her only white blouse. "Brilliant," she muttered, dabbing furiously, with a napkin. 25 years old and perpetually in chaos, Clara had the sharp mind of an academic and the time management skills of a tornado. Her red hair, wavy and wild, refused to stay tied back, and now she was about to walk into an interview with the CEO of a billion-dollar empire looking like a drenched undergrad. The towering glass structure of Al-Zahiri International loomed above her. When the elevator dinged on the top floor, Clara stepped out into a reception area so sleek and silent, it felt like a museum. A man in a crisp gray suit frowned as she approached. "Miss Monroe, you're 5 minutes late. Mr. Al-Zahiri does not tolerate tardiness." Before Clara could stammer out an apology, a tall man with broad shoulders and an impeccable suit emerged from a nearby conference room. His gaze moved from the stain on her blouse to her messy bun, and then finally locked onto her eyes. "You're the linguist from NYU?" he asked in a clipped accent. "Yes, sir. Clara Monroe. I apologize for being late and for—" She gestured awkwardly at her shirt. He gave no reaction aside from a brief flash of irritation. "Follow me. You have 5 minutes to prove I'm not wasting mine." Clara swallowed hard and trailed him into an expansive office with a panoramic view of Central Park. The walls were lined with abstract art, and the desk was a masterpiece of minimalist steel and glass. He didn't offer her a seat. "Your resume claims you're fluent in Arabic. Prove it." Clara didn't hesitate. She shifted into flawless Arabic, her voice steady. "My grandfather spoke to me only in Arabic. He taught me to love not just the language, but the poetry, the history, the soul of it." One of Ayaan's eyebrows twitched upward. Barely. He responded in Arabic, testing her across dialects, literary nuances, even historical idioms. Clara not only kept up, she corrected him once, politely, on a misattributed quote. "You corrected me?" he said suddenly, switching back to English. Her heart skipped. "My deepest apologies. I didn't mean—" "No, you were right. Al-Mutanabi did write that verse in exile." "Sit." Clara dropped into the chair like it might vanish beneath her. While he skimmed her resume, she took in the office. No personal photos, just plaques, sculptures, and one massive painting of desert dunes swallowing the sky. "Why this job, Miss Monroe? An NYU graduate can land something more prestigious." Clara considered lying. Something about career trajectory, cultural passion. But his unblinking eyes demanded honesty. "I need the money," she said simply. "I have student loans up to my neck, a tiny apartment with no heating, and a thesis to—" "Finish. Your salary offer would fix a lot of that." Ayaan tilted his head slightly. What if the job requires global travel? Full availability. No notice. She didn't blink. I'd ask when I start. A rare, faint smile flickered at the corner of his mouth. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. Do not be late. As Clara stood, stunned, he nodded toward Rami. He'll show you. The contract. And Miss Monroe? She turned back. Buy a few extra blouses to keep in the office. Accidents happen. Outside the building, Clara nearly screamed with excitement. She called her best friend instantly. Jade, you won't believe. I got the job. Wait, the job? With that intense Al-Zahiri guy? The one Forbes called a ruthless genius? He's not ruthless, Clara said, her heart pounding. He's, I don't know, intense, but brilliant. Well, you just landed a job that pays triple what most translators make. That calls for champagne. Dinner at my place tonight? Clara smiled as she weaved through Manhattan's chaos. For the first time in years, life felt like it might finally be turning around. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that at that very moment, Ayaan al-Zahiri was ordering a full background investigation into her life. And he was about to discover something even she didn't know. Clara Monroe arrived 15 minutes early the next morning, nerves buzzing beneath her new navy blue suit, the most expensive thing she had ever bought, leaving her bank account trembling. She had barely slept, spending most of the night researching Al-Zahiri International and the notoriously private man now listed as her employer. Rami Saeed greeted her at the executive floor with a rare approving nod. Mr. Al-Zahiri is currently on a conference call, he said. Let me show you to your workspace. Clara expected a cubicle or a corner desk. She did not expect what she got. An entire office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of Central Park. A sleek desk with an ultra-modern computer setup, shelves lined with language manuals, cultural encyclopedias, and a plush navy couch tucked into one corner. It looked more like a scholar's haven than a corporate station. Clara blinked. This is mine? Mr. Al-Zahiri believes the right. Environment yields the right results, Rami replied, handing her a sleek company phone. He may contact you at any hour. He rarely sleeps. Clara was still absorbing that when Rami added something even more shocking. Oh, and this too. He handed her a corporate credit card, black, embossed and shimmering with quiet danger. For wardrobe upgrades and business expenses, he explained. Use it wisely. Mr. Al-Zahiri values discretion above all. Clara stared at the no-limit card. This is wildly tempting. Resist the temptation, Rami said dryly. The main office door opened suddenly. Ayaan al-Zahiri stepped out, still on a call, Arabic flowing fast and sharp from his lips. He spotted Clara, gave a quick nod of acknowledgement and turned away. Even with his unreadable expression, Clara couldn't help but notice how sharply attractive he was, impossibly put together, like a man who had never lost control of a single moment in his life. After he ended the call, his voice cut across the room. Miss Monroe, with me. We have a meeting with Saudi investors in 20 minutes. Clara blinked. Now? I thought there'd be orientation first. This is your orientation, he said without pause. Already walking. Stay close. Translate accurately. Speak only when addressed. She followed him to the elevator, matching his pace in heels that were already threatening to blister her toes. As the elevator descended, Ayaan looked her over with a glance that was quick but precise. Your suit is a vast improvement from yesterday's coffee-soaked catastrophe. Thank you, Clara said, unsure if that was praise or insult. It wasn't a compliment, just an observation. He checked his luxury watch. First lesson. In global business, presentation is as important as substance. With all due respect, Mr. Al-Zahiri, I was hired for my fluency, not my fashion sense. He turned slightly, clearly surprised by her bluntness. Interesting. My previous translators didn't challenge me. Clara raised an eyebrow. And where are they now? A pause. A faint, reluctant smile. Fair point. The meeting room at the luxury hotel was sleek and intimidating. The Saudi investors, 3 sharply dressed traditionalists, looked surprised when Clara entered beside Ayaan. Their surprise bordered on discomfort. Without missing a beat, Ayaan introduced her in perfect Arabic, his tone firm and respectful. This is Clara Monroe, a scholar in Middle Eastern literature, fluent in 7 dialects. She is here as my language and cultural advisor. Clara swallowed her disbelief. 7 dialects? That was generous. For 2 hours, she translated rapidly, juggling numbers, legal phrasing, and cultural idioms. When one of the investors made a disparaging remark about women in business, clearly assuming she wouldn't understand, Clara kept her expression neutral and translated it word for word. Ayaan's jaw clenched. His response in Arabic was cutting, but controlled. The investor went pale and promptly apologized. On the ride back to the office, Clara braced for a reprimand. Instead, Ayaan seemed almost pleased. "You have a photographic memory," he said. "Excuse me?" "You translated every term, figure, and clause. No notes, no hesitations." Clara shrugged. "Languages and numbers. I've always had a strange knack." He stared out the tinted window, silent for a long moment. "Do you have plans tonight?" "Yes," she said, caught off guard. "Dinner and study session with a friend." "Why?" "Cancel them. Dinner with our legal team. 8 p.m. She blinked. "Mr. Al-Zahiri, it's nearly 6. That's short notice. I have... Personal plans are now secondary to professional obligations. You signed a full availability clause." Her fists clenched on her lap, but she forced herself to respond calmly. "Understood." Back at the office, Clara ducked into a hallway to call Jade. "I can't make it. I have to cancel." "Again." "You sound exhausted." Jade sighed. "Does he think you're a robot?" "I think he is one," Clara muttered. "A handsome, controlling, emotionally stunted robot." She turned the corner and froze. Ayaan stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. She swallowed. "I have to go." He said nothing about what he'd overheard. "The lawyers arrived early," he said. "Let's go." Dinner was held in a private room at an elite midtown restaurant. Clara kept quiet at first, translating as needed, but soon the conversation shifted to literature, her comfort zone. Someone quoted classical Arabic poetry. Clara countered with a more accurate version. Even Ayaan seemed surprised. "Where did you learn that?" he asked, leaning in. "My grandfather," she said. "He was a professor of comparative literature. Taught me Arabic from age 6. Your last name doesn't sound Arabic." "It's not. Nassar was on my mother's side. Monroe is from my father." He nodded, as if mentally filing the detail. "You're full of surprises, Miss Monroe." By the time they returned to her apartment in Brooklyn, Clara was exhausted, but her mind buzzed with electricity, demanding, complicated, impossible. But for the first time in years, she felt intellectually alive. She didn't notice the black sedan parked across the street, or the man inside it, taking detailed notes about the building she lived in. 3 weeks into her new position, Clara Monroe had adapted, mostly. Her days began at 6 a.m., and often stretched well past midnight. She missed 2 thesis deadlines, barely saw her best friend Jade, and had essentially moved into her office without realizing it. "You're giving up your life for this job," Jade told her over a rushed lunch one afternoon. "I haven't seen you in days. You look like you're 1 espresso short of a breakdown." Clara checked her phone for the 4th time in under 5 minutes. "The salary makes it worth it, and it's temporary. Once I pay off my loans..." "If you survive that long..." Jade muttered. You look exhausted. Clara didn't argue. Yet there was something addictive about working with Ayaan al-Zahiri. He was brilliant, relentlessly focused, and sometimes surprisingly human. Last week, she had caught him quietly slipping a $100 bill into the janitor's pocket after a long shift, and the week before, she saw him actually laugh, at something on his phone before snapping back into stoicism the moment he noticed her. Earth to Clara, Jade waved a hand. You were thinking about him again, weren't you? No, Clara lied. I was thinking about work. Sure, work. That just happens to look like a tall, ridiculously attractive billionaire. He's my boss. So what? That man seriously needs someone to make him smile. And you, my overworked friend, need someone to drag you out of that glass tower. Clara's phone rang. It was Rami. She mouthed, I told you so, as Jade rolled her eyes. Miss Monroe, Rami said with polite urgency. Mr. al-Zahiri requires your presence immediately. The jet is being prepared. Jet? Dubai. Departure. In 3 hours. Clara blinked. Excuse me, what? Please pack accordingly. She hung up, staring at Jade. I have to go. Jade threw her hands in the air. Of course you do. At least promise me you'll go luxury shopping in Dubai. I'll be working, not sightseeing. 2 hours later, Clara sat in the back of a sleek town car, a small suitcase hastily packed, her nerves on overdrive. She had never even been on a private jet. When she stepped into the aircraft's cabin, her breath caught. It was less a plane and more a 5-star hotel suite in the sky. Ayaan was already seated, reading over documents, perfectly composed in yet another bespoke suit. First time on a private jet? He asked without looking up. Is it that obvious? You're looking around like a child in a candy store. Clara blushed. It's impressive. It's practical, he said, setting down his tablet. We have work to do on the flight. I need you to translate these contracts and memorize key terms for tomorrow's meetings. The next few hours were a whirlwind of clauses, terminology, and back-to-back revisions. Ayaan barely spoke unless it was to clarify a clause or push her harder. Eventually, when Clara could hardly keep her eyes open, he finally closed his laptop. Get some rest, he said simply. We need to be sharp when we land. You should take your own advice, she murmured, noticing the faint circles under his eyes. When was the last time you actually slept? He looked at her, surprised by the concern in her voice. Sleep is a luxury when you're building an empire. Even emperors need sleep, she murmured, her head already tilting back. When she finally drifted off, she didn't notice the way Ayaan watched her for a moment. Expression softened, jaw unclenched. Quiet, almost gentle. Hours later, Clara woke to find a blanket carefully draped over her. Ayaan sat across from her, asleep, his expression unguarded, younger somehow, without the hard lines of pressure. She allowed herself to look, just for a second. Then the jet began its descent. Outside, her window, the shimmering city of Dubai, rose from the desert like a mirage. At the hotel, Clara's jaw nearly dropped. It wasn't just luxury, it was absurd. Marble floors, gold-plated elevators, an entire presidential suite for Ayaan, and a spacious adjoining room for her. Inside her room was a stylist. With compliments from Mr. al-Zahiri, she said, presenting a row of evening gowns in deep jewel tones. He mentioned green or blue would bring out your eyes. Clara blinked. He noticed my eye color? She settled on a modest but elegant emerald gown. Hairstyled, makeup applied, she barely recognized the reflection staring back at her in the mirror. When she stepped into the lobby, Ayaan was on the phone, speaking rapid Arabic. He turned, and paused mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly, before his mask returned. "I'll call you back," he said, then hung up. "Miss Monroe," he said, his voice lower than usual. "You look appropriate." Clara laughed. That might be the most anticlimactic compliment I've ever received. A flush rose to his cheeks, barely visible, but real. "I meant," he corrected himself, "you look stunning." On the way to the charity event, Ayaan briefed her. "Tonight is more than social. Many of the investors we meet tomorrow will be there. Appearances matter. And what exactly is my role? Tonight you're my companion." "Your what?" "In this region, attending events alone can be perceived as instability. You're fluent, poised, educated. It makes sense." Clara raised a brow. "So I'm a prop. You're a respected academic with cultural insight. That's far from a prop." She wasn't sure if that was meant to flatter her or convince himself. The charity gala was dazzling, held in a converted palace overlooking the Persian Gulf. Crystal chandeliers glinted from above as Arabic music drifted through the marble halls. Clara felt completely out of place until she realized something. Ayaan was watching her, not like a boss evaluating an employee, but like a man measuring the distance between himself and someone he couldn't quite understand. He introduced her with ease, weaving in details from her thesis, quoting lines from her resume she didn't remember mentioning. "Miss Monroe is a specialist in modern Arabic literature," he said at one point. "Her academic work on linguistic evolution in post-war poetry is quite compelling." Clara leaned in, whispering, "You need to stop exaggerating. I haven't even submitted my thesis yet." "I read the draft," he whispered back. "Rami got it from your advisor." Clara nearly choked on her champagne. "That's a serious privacy breach." "It's due diligence," he said coolly. "I only hire the best." Before she could fire off a reply, an older gentleman approached. Ayaan's face lit up in a way Clara had never seen. "Uncle Tariq," he greeted, embracing the man warmly. The older gentleman smiled. "You didn't tell me you'd be here tonight." Always supporting a good cause. Tariq turned to Clara, eyes twinkling. "And who is this charming young woman?" "This is Clara Monroe, my translator and cultural advisor." Tariq's smile froze for a fraction of a second, then returned. "Monroe," he said slowly. "A pleasure, my dear." As they spoke, Clara noticed his gaze sharpening when she mentioned her maternal grandfather, Elias Nassar. Tariq blinked, as though seeing something only he recognized. Before she could ask, he was whisked away by another guest. But a seed had been planted, and a door had quietly creaked open to the past. The night air in Dubai was warm and fragrant, the city glowing beneath a canopy of stars. Clara found herself momentarily, alone, standing on a stone balcony at the gala, sipping a flute of something sparkling and expensive. Her head spun, not from the champagne, but from the whirlwind of impressions, conversations, and revelations. Behind her, laughter floated from the marble hall. Around her, whispers of intrigue and money buzzed beneath every polished word. And beside her, footsteps. She turned. Ayaan. He joined her at the edge of the terrace, his expression unreadable as always, but less impenetrable. "Do you always vanish during events?" he asked. "I needed air," Clara replied. "And a moment where I'm not being paraded as your companion." He arched a brow. "You handled it well. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a corporate performance review. A bit of both." They stood in silence, gazing out at the city. The water below reflected the glittering lights of the skyline like scattered stars. "You're unusually quiet," Clara noted. "I brought you out here for a reason," Ayaan said, still watching the horizon. There's something I want to show you." He led her through a side corridor, up a narrow staircase, and out onto a private rooftop garden, lush with greenery, lanterns glowing softly beneath pergolas of jasmine. Clara gasped. "This is incredible. I come here every time I'm in Dubai," he said. 20 years, and I never get tired of this view." She glanced at him. "Why do you work so hard, Ayaan?" He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "My father built something from nothing. I watched him claw his way out of poverty and into boardrooms. When he died, I promised I'd protect his legacy and grow it. That kind of promise consumes everything else." Clara looked at him, surprised by the softness in his tone. "Is it worth it?" His eyes met hers, dark, intense, vulnerable. "That's a question I've been asking myself lately." A long silence followed, then a quiet interruption. Rami, discreet as always. "Sir, your scheduled call with New York is in 5 minutes." Ayaan looked away, mask sliding back into place. "Duty calls." Back at the hotel, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something between them had shifted. A crack in the armor, a glimpse of the man beneath the empire. The following day was brutal. 8 hours of negotiations, 3 dialects, and no breaks. Clara translated without rest, her voice strained, her mind drained. When they returned to the hotel, she could barely stay upright in the elevator. "You were exceptional today," Ayaan said as the doors closed. She blinked at him. "That might be the first outright compliment you've ever given me." "Then I'll make it count. You were brilliant." "Thank you," she murmured, massaging her temples, "though my brain feels like pudding." "Headache?" She nodded. Instead of pressing the button for her floor, Ayaan also pressed the penthouse. "Where are we going?" she asked. "You need quiet and fresh air." The penthouse balcony was empty, the private infinity pool reflecting the golden hues of sunset. Ayaan loosened his tie and gestured for her to sit in a lounge chair. Without a word, he stepped behind her and gently placed his hands on her temples, applying soft, circular pressure. Clara tensed. "What are you doing?" "A pressure technique. My mother was a doctor. She taught me." She hesitated, then let him continue. Slowly, the pain began to ease. "You never talk about your family," she said. "There's rarely time for personal conversation at work." "This isn't work." He paused. Then, "No, I suppose it's not." For a few long minutes, there was only silence and the rhythm of his fingers easing her pain. "My mother died when I was 12, he said suddenly. "Cancer. My father was never the same." Clara opened her eyes, startled by the confession. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "It was a long time ago." Still, losing someone we love doesn't fade. It just settles differently. He didn't reply. But he didn't pull away either. After a moment, he stood, retreating behind his mask. "Again, dinner's in an hour. Uncle Tariq will be joining us." Clara sat up straighter. "He seemed to know my grandfather. Isn't that strange?" Ayaan's face revealed nothing. The international business world is small. Coincidences happen. But his tone suggested otherwise. Dinner was held at a rooftop restaurant with panoramic views of the city. Tariq Husseini was already seated when they arrived, standing to kiss Clara's hands and greet Ayaan warmly. "You look radiant, my dear," he said to her. The meal was unexpectedly easy. Tariq told stories of Ayaan as a child. Serious, always. Reading, always planning. "He was 10 when he pitched me a full business expansion plan for my taxi company," Tariq laughed. "And it was actually good." Clara chuckled. "That explains you a lot. And you, Clara? What pulled you into languages and literature?" My grandfather, Elias Nassar. He was a professor. Taught me Arabic and how to love words. Tariq grew quiet. A remarkable man. You knew him, didn't you? Clara asked, leaning forward. He glanced at Ayaan, who gave the subtlest shake of his head. Tariq smiled vaguely. Academic circles. Long ago. The answer didn't satisfy her. But before she could press further, Ayaan smoothly changed the subject. When they returned to the hotel, Clara stopped at her door. Your uncle, she said softly. He's hiding something. About my grandfather. Ayaan didn't look at her. Tariq enjoys mystery. Don't take it seriously. It's more than that, she said. The way he looked at me when I said my grandfather's name. The questions he asked. He knew him well. He didn't respond. But she saw his jaw tighten. As he turned to leave, she said his name for the first time. Softly. Ayaan. He paused. Is there something you're not telling me? He stood still, shoulders tense, then finally, good night, Clara. And he walked away, leaving her with more questions than answers. That night, Clara Monroe dreamed of her grandfather. They were in his study in Cambridge. Warm lighting, the scent of old books and cardamom tea. He sat behind his desk, surrounded by shelves of Arabic literature, telling her stories in their shared language. This time, he was speaking of two young men, friends turned rivals, whose lives had been torn apart by betrayal. When she woke, the story was already fading, like ink bleeding into water, but the feeling remained. There was something she needed to know. Back in New York, the rhythm of work resumed at its relentless pace. Only something was off. Ayaan was different, more distant, detached. He began delegating Clara's assignments through Rami. He barely acknowledged her in meetings. The easy tension they once shared, intellectual, electric, had been replaced by silence. After a week of this Cold War, Clara couldn't take it anymore. She marched into his office without knocking. Did I do something wrong? She demanded, closing the door behind her. Ayaan looked up from his desk, visibly startled. No. You've barely spoken to me since we returned from Dubai. He ran a hand through his hair, an uncharacteristic gesture. It's nothing you did. I just have personal matters to sort out. Clara folded her arms. Does this have to do with my grandfather? And your uncle? The direct question hit its mark. He hesitated, just for a moment. Why would you think that? I'm not just a translator, Ayaan. I read people, and I know something changed after that dinner. Something you're not telling me. He stood and walked to the window, gazing out over Manhattan as if searching for answers in the skyline. Some stories, he said quietly, aren't mine to tell. If it's about my family, then I have every right to hear it. He turned to face her. The mask was still there, but something fragile flickered behind his eyes. I need more time. Please, Clara, just trust me. You'll know everything. When the time is right, she searched his face. Then at least stop avoiding me, she said softly. That part hurts. Her honesty stunned him. I never meant to hurt you, he said. He paused, searching for the right words. You're a valuable colleague. Clara gave a humorless laugh. Wow, that really clears things up. You know what I mean. Actually, I don't, she snapped. 1 minute it feels like there's something between us. The next, it's like I'm just a resume in a chair. He was silent for a long time. I have a trip to Boston next week, he said finally. I want you to come with me. Boston? Why? Business at first, but also because there's someone there I think you should meet. Her heart skipped. You've been digging into my grandfather. He didn't deny it. I've been trying to understand the past, the connections. That's invasive, you know. Yes, he said, surprisingly honest, but necessary. She studied him for a long moment. So what is this, Ayaan? Some kind of corporate family redemption project? I don't know what it is anymore, he admitted. But I need you to see what I've found. She tilted her head, trying to stay angry. But she couldn't. You're lucky I'm curious. The next morning, Clara found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a faded black and white photograph. Two young men, arms around each other, smiling in front of a storefront sign that read, Nassar and Husseini Imports. She recognized her grandfather, instantly. The man beside him was unmistakably a younger version of Tariq. On the back, in looping Arabic script, Elias and Tariq, partners, 1958. There was no note. No explanation. Only silence where answers should have been. When she went looking for Ayaan, Rami informed her that he was in back-to-back meetings all day. So she buried herself in work, her mind anything but focused, the photo tucked carefully, into her notebook like a secret waiting to erupt. That weekend, she went digging. Old boxes from her grandfather's house. Yellowed documents, unopened letters, even a few receipts from Lebanese grocers in Cambridge. She scoured Harvard archives, finding brief mentions of Nassar and Husseini imports in local papers from the 1960s. One article praised their visionary approach to Middle Eastern trade. Another called them pioneers of cultural exchange. Then, nothing. No mention of a falling out. No explanation of why her grandfather had left the business world behind. But something had clearly broken. The night before the trip to Boston, Clara was still in her office when Ayaan appeared at the door. His tie was loosened, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, and for once, less like a machine. You should get some rest, he said. We leave early. Says the man who hasn't slept since 2007. He walked in and sat across from her. Thank you for the photo, she said. You left it for me? He nodded. I found it in my uncle's files. Why didn't you tell me about the connection? He looked down, rubbing his eyes. Because it's complicated. Complicated how? There's a shared history between our families. I only recently discovered it. And it's delicate. She leaned forward, alert. Is it bad? Did my grandfather do something wrong? No, Ayaan said firmly. Elias Nassar was an honorable man. Then what is it? He hesitated, then said something she didn't expect. It's not the past that's the problem. It's how much I enjoy being around you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Clara stared at him, heart thudding. Before she could reply, he stood. Get some sleep, Clara, he said, softer this time. You'll understand everything in Boston. Then he left, leaving the door open and, her heart dangerously ajar. Boston in the fall was exactly how Clara remembered it. Trees painted in reds and golds, the scent of wood smoke on the breeze, the brisk air biting with the first breath of winter. As the jet descended, Clara looked out the window, her chest tightening. It's strange to be back, she said, breaking the silence in the cabin. You spent a lot of time here? Ayaan asked, setting aside the file he hadn't touched in half an hour. Every summer, she replied. My grandfather's home in Cambridge. Books piled high, Arabic poetry taped to the fridge, coffee always, steeping on the stove. Ayaan's gaze softened. You loved him. I owe him everything. After my parents died, he became my world. He raised me. He taught me how to see people, not just understand them, see them. His voice dropped. I didn't know about your parents. It was a long time ago, she said, looking away. But you were right. Loss leaves a mark. They exchanged a look, something quiet and mutual passing between them, the kind of understanding words rarely reach. Their car dropped them off in Beacon Hill at a luxury hotel tucked among cobblestone streets and iron balconies. Ayaan had business meetings scheduled for the afternoon, leaving Clara with her morning free. Over breakfast in the hotel courtyard, he surprised her. "Would you like to visit some of the places from your childhood?" Clara blinked. "Seriously? Even emperors take breaks," he said, referencing her joke on the plane to Dubai. So they walked. She took him through Harvard Yard, where her grandfather had once lectured. Then to an Arabic bookstore tucked on a narrow street, where scholars whispered in corners and coffee simmered in copper pots. To her surprise, Ayaan didn't just follow. He engaged. He asked questions. He listened. And he laughed. More than once. At a tiny cafe her grandfather loved, Clara ordered their old Sunday staple, thick Arabic coffee and pistachio pastries. As she reminisced aloud, an elderly man approached their table. "Excuse me," he said, voice weathered by time. "Did I hear you mention Elias Nassar?" Clara's breath caught. "Yes, he was my grandfather." The man's face lit up. "Little Clara? Impossible. The last time I saw you, you were barely up to my knee." He turned to Ayaan. "And you must be Fared's son." Ayaan shook his head politely. "No, I'm Ayaan al-Zahiri. Fared is my uncle by affection." "Ah," the man said knowingly. "Still, remarkable resemblance." He looked between them. "Elias and Fared. Those two changed everything for us immigrants. Without them, many of us wouldn't have had a place to start in America." Clara stared at the man as he walked away, her mind spinning. She turned to Ayaan. "It's time for some answers." He glanced at his watch. "We're due for a meeting shortly. No more deflections, Ayaan. No more riddles. Whatever your uncle knows, whatever you know, I want to hear it. Today." His voice was low. "You will." The meeting was held in Louisburg Square, in an elegant brick home that looked more like a private library than a boardroom. A butler led them to a sitting room filled with old-world charm. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a crackling fire, a painting above the mantel. Clara froze. It was her grandfather, young, standing beside Tariq. "This house," Tariq said as he entered from a side door, "is where it all began." He smiled at Clara, but it was tinged with sadness. The original headquarters of Nassar and Husseini Imports, founded in 1958. Clara sat slowly. "My grandfather never mentioned a business. Not once. For reasons you'll soon understand," Tariq said, settling into a chair. "He and I were like brothers. We fled Lebanon together during political unrest. Came to America with nothing but ambition and a few contacts." He spoke gently, with reverence. "We built the business from scratch. We brought in spices, textiles, books, even traditional music instruments. Everything to help fellow immigrants feel connected to home." "What happened?" Clara asked softly. Tariq's expression dimmed. "In 1963, we disagreed about the company's future. I wanted to expand into oil. Elias refused. He said it would corrupt the soul of what we'd built. So a business dispute broke your bond?" "No," he admitted. "It was more personal than that." He looked at Ayaan, who now stood at the window, silent. "I had fallen in love with Elias's sister. Your great aunt, Layla." Clara blinked. I don't have a great aunt. She passed away young. A rare heart condition," Tariq said. "Your grandfather believed the stress of our conflict worsened her condition. After she died, he blamed me. He sold his share of the business, left it behind, and retreated into academia." Tariq reached into a drawer and pulled out a leather folder. Inside was a yellowed document. "The original founding agreement," he said, handing it to her. Written in Elias's handwriting. He insisted the company would always belong equally to our families. Clara read the lines. Her grandfather's bold Arabic letters stared back at her, declaring the dream of unity. "And now?" she asked, her voice a whisper. Tariq looked at her, eyes filled with decades of guilt and longing. "I've transferred 20% of my shares in Al-Zahiri International to your name." Clara gasped. "What?" "It's the share your grandfather would have had he stayed. This isn't charity. It's justice." She looked at Ayaan. "Did you know?" He nodded. "I found out yesterday. It was his decision. And you're okay with this?" "The company's still thriving," he said simply. "And now I have a professional reason to keep you close." Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stood abruptly. "This is overwhelming." Tariq held up a hand. "You don't have to accept. But I had to tell you the truth, before it was too late." Clara looked down at the document again. Her grandfather's words echoed in her head. Then she turned away, needing air, needing space. Outside, the Boston air hit her like a wave. Clara walked the familiar streets, barely feeling the pavement beneath her. She passed Harvard, then turned toward her grandfather's old home. It still stood, small, ivy-covered, quiet. She sat on the bench across from it, staring at the house that once held her entire world. She didn't hear the footsteps until someone sat beside her. She didn't have to look to know it was him. "How did you know I'd come here?" she asked. "I didn't, but it made sense." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Ayaan spoke. "I didn't hire you to manipulate you." She stayed quiet. "I wanted to verify your connection at first." "That's true. But the moment you walked into my office, coffee-stained blouse correcting my poetry, I knew there was more to you." Clara looked at him finally. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Because I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid you'd walk away. First from the job, then from me." The raw honesty in his voice disarmed her. "What does your uncle want from me?" "Redemption. Recognition. Closure. Maybe all three." "And you?" Ayaan's voice was quiet. "I want a second chance, with everything." She didn't reply. But, for the first time, she didn't push him away. They sat together on that bench, as the wind rustled through the golden leaves. Two people, connected by the past, uncertain of the future, but no longer strangers to truth. Back at Tariq Husseini's home. The fire in the library crackled gently as evening settled over Boston. Clara stepped through the doorway again, this time steadier, less shaken, but still carrying the weight of everything she had learned. Tariq looked older than he had just hours ago, his face lined, his posture slightly hunched with the burden of time. But when he saw Clara and Ayaan return together, his eyes brightened with a flicker of hope. "I thought I might have lost the chance to explain everything," he said, motioning them to sit. Clara folded her coat over the chair, her voice calm. "I'm listening." Tariq sat down slowly, his fingers laced together in his lap. "I told you how your grandfather and I built the company together. But there's more. After the fallout, I continued sending funds to him, quietly, through third parties. I wanted to make sure he was taken care of, even if he wouldn't accept it directly." Clara frowned. "He never mentioned that." "He didn't know." "Not really. The transfers were anonymous. But I believe he used some of that money to pay for your schooling, your books, maybe even to keep that little Cambridge house." She looked down, stunned. "I always wondered how he managed." He never earned much as a professor. Tariq reached into a drawer and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, beneath delicate tissue paper, was a worn, leather-bound notebook. "This," he said softly, "belonged to your grandfather. His personal journal from our years together." Clara picked it up gently, like it might crumble in her hands. The first page was dated 1957. Written in Arabic. She recognized the handwriting. Instantly. Bold and flowing, each letter a thread to her past. Sometimes I wonder if Tariq knows how much his fire pulled me out of the ashes. I see obstacles. He sees possibilities. Perhaps that's what makes a true partnership. When two people together become more than the sum of their parts. Clara blinked back tears. "I found that in a desk I had kept in storage for years," Tariq said, "hidden in a false drawer, along with letters he wrote to my niece, your great-aunt Layla, but never sent." Ayaan had been silent until now, but his voice was filled with reverence as he asked, "You're sure the handwriting is authentic?" "I'm certain," Tariq said. "And there's more." He pulled out a yellowed envelope sealed with wax. "This is a copy of a handwritten agreement, not the business contract, but a personal will. Elias drafted it before our disagreements, stating that no matter what happened, our families would share in the legacy." He handed it to Clara. The paper trembled in her hands as she unfolded it. It wasn't legal in today's terms, but the meaning was clear. Clara looked up. "Why are you showing me this now?" Tariq exhaled slowly, then looked between her and Ayaan. "I'm old. I've made peace with my mistakes, but I haven't forgotten them. I have no children, no heirs. I want to honor the promise Elias and I made to each other, to let our families continue where we failed." She closed the folder gently. "It's not a small gesture." "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's justice and legacy." After Tariq retired to rest, Clara and Ayaan stepped into the cool Boston night, walking slowly through the lush garden behind the house. A fountain trickled somewhere in the distance. She held the journal to her chest like a lifeline. "I didn't expect any of this," she whispered. "Neither did I," Ayaan admitted. "But maybe some legacies choose you." She glanced at him. "What do we do now?" "That depends on you," he said. "You could walk away from it all. No one would blame you." "But I won't," she replied, almost surprising herself. "Not because of the shares. Not even because of the company. Because of him. My grandfather. I want to honor what he built and what he gave up." They stopped walking, standing under a pergola heavy with ivy. "I want to create a foundation," she said after a long pause, "for immigrant students, in his name and Layla's. A way to give others what he gave me. You could integrate it into Al-Zahiri International," Ayaan offered. "Run it yourself. Build it however you want." Clara looked at him, measuring his words. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Al-Zahiri?" He took a step closer, his voice lower. "No, I'm offering you a partnership. Personal and professional." Her heart skipped. "That's a risky proposition," she murmured. He smiled faintly. "The best ones usually are." Just as the space between them narrowed, a voice called from across the garden. "Sir," Rami said, approaching with careful urgency. "Forgive the interruption. There's a complication with the European acquisition. Regulators flagged something unexpected." Ayaan's entire posture changed, shoulders stiffening, focus snapping back into place. "The European markets just opened," he said. Clara gave a soft sigh. "You should go." He hesitated, clearly torn. "Are you sure?" "Your empire needs its emperor." She tried to sound playful. She didn't quite succeed. He nodded reluctantly. "I'll be back soon." As he walked away, She looked down at the journal in her hands. She wasn't just reading a history anymore. She was becoming part of it. Clara spent the rest of the night alone in her hotel suite, curled beneath a blanket, surrounded by yellowed pages and the scent of old ink. Her grandfather's journal rested open on her lap, each line more personal, more revealing than anything she had ever known about the man who had raised her. Gone was the soft-spoken professor with his gentle corrections and scholarly patience. In these pages, she found a passionate young immigrant, full of ambition and idealism, a man deeply loyal to his best friend, a man who had once believed they would build something that would outlive them both. But with each turn of the page, a sadness deepened. The later entries were shorter, fragmented. The tone shifted, from hope to weariness to heartbreak. One entry made her pause. Today, Tariq and I argued again. I fear our visions no longer align. He sees oil and expansion. I see culture and roots. Layla says I should speak gently. She worries I'll lose him. I already feel like I have. Clara pressed her palm against the words. Layla, the aunt she never knew. The wound her grandfather never spoke of. The past wasn't just history. It was a shadow still shaping everything she was walking through. She was still awake when a soft knock came at her door. She opened it, expecting a message from the concierge. Instead, she found a bellhop holding a tray with a silver envelope and a single red rose. She stared, confused. Thank you. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. Sorry for the interruption today. Breakfast on the beach. My apology. Clara couldn't help but smile. Ayaan. Always in control. But slowly, undeniably, changing. The next morning, Clara stepped into the hotel lobby, journal tucked under her arm, still not sure what she would say. Ayaan was already there, dressed more casually than she'd ever seen him. Khaki pants, sleeves rolled up, dark hair tousled by the sea breeze outside. He stood when he saw her. You're early, he said. So are you. Some things are worth showing up for. Breakfast was served at a private table on the beach, just steps from the water. The sky above the Persian Gulf was a soft watercolor of gold and pale blue, the waves gentle against the sand. I read the entire journal, Clara said as they ate. Ayaan looked at her, listening intently. It's not just a record, she continued. It's a map of everything he cared about. The business, the friendship, Layla, the heartbreak. He poured everything into it. Ayaan nodded. I've seen that look in your eyes before. When you translate, when you speak about your thesis, you connect with words deeply. It's rare. Clara looked up. I think I understand you better now, too. He raised an eyebrow. You carry legacy like a burden, she said. Your father's company, Tariq's mentorship, the empire you've built. All of it presses on you, even when you won't admit it. He didn't deny it. No one's ever said that to me. Maybe no one was paying attention. The moment between them thickened, charged with something unspoken. You make me look at everything differently, Clara. He leaned in slightly. This is the part where you say something arrogant, she teased, trying to lighten the tension. He didn't smile. Instead, he said quietly, You make me want to be more than what I've been. Her heart beat louder, in her chest. This was the man who barked at billion-dollar deals, who silenced rooms with a glance. Now here he was, admitting something soft, something real. He reached across the table, brushing his fingers lightly across hers, and when she didn't pull away, he leaned in slowly. Their lips met, tentative at first, unsure, then deeper, warmer, like something that had been waiting far, too long to happen. When they pulled apart, Clara laughed nervously, her cheeks flushed. Well, that complicates things. Actually, Ayaan murmured, I think it simplifies everything. She looked at him, caught somewhere between disbelief and surrender. You do realize, she said slowly, that I'm still processing all of this. The company, the inheritance, my grandfather's past, your feelings, my own. I know. I'm not ready for perfect. I don't even know if I'm ready for possible. I'm not asking for either, he said. Just honesty. Whatever you're feeling, whatever this becomes, don't hide it. Don't hide from me. Clara nodded slowly. Then, as if sensing the perfect timing of narrative tension, her phone buzzed. Rami again. She sighed and answered. Yes? Miss Monroe, he said. Tariq Husseini is on the line. He says it's urgent. She exchanged a glance with Ayaan. I'll take it. Rami patched the call through. Clara, my dear. Tariq's voice came through the speaker, cheerful but breathless. I found something. More documents. More letters. One in particular. You both need to see it. Immediately. What kind of letter? She asked. Not over the phone, he said. Come to Dubai. I'm staying at my home there. It's important. Clara hung up slowly, her thoughts spinning. Ayaan looked at her. Do you think it's real? Or just more theater from my uncle? I don't know, she said. But I think I'm curious enough to find out. The private flight to Dubai was quieter this time. Clara sat across from Ayaan, her journal open in her lap, but her eyes on the clouds outside. She couldn't stop thinking about what Tariq might have found. A letter, he said, important enough to summon them both across the world. Again, Ayaan watched her for a long moment, then spoke softly. You haven't said much. I'm processing, she replied. There's only so much revelation a girl can take before her brain just fuzzes out. He smiled gently. I know the feeling. But she wasn't sure he really did. Ayaan had lived in legacies, expectations, and secrets for most of his life. Clara had just been dropped into hers, and it still didn't feel real. She looked at him. Are you nervous about what your uncle has to say? He hesitated. I don't get nervous, she smirked. That's a lie. He tilted his head. Maybe. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, and then the jet began its descent. Tariq's home in Dubai was nothing like the sleek business towers Ayaan lived in. This villa was old, beautiful and wide, with white stone walls, intricate, lattice windows, and a garden filled with orange trees and jasmine vines. It smelled of memory and age. Tariq greeted them at the door himself, his long robe fluttering in the breeze, a glint of something, urgency or excitement, in his eyes. You came quickly, he said, ushering them inside. You said it was important, Clara replied, clutching her journal. He led them into a room Clara had never seen before. It looked like a vault converted into a study, lined with old safes, carved wood cabinets, and scrolls rolled in glass cases. Tariq moved to a chest in the corner and opened it carefully. This, he said, holding up a faded envelope sealed, in gold wax, was hidden in Layla's things. I found it behind a false panel in her old dressing table. It's addressed to Elias, but never sent. Clara took it gently, her hands suddenly trembling. The seal cracked with a whisper. Inside was a single folded page, written in gold ink, in Layla's delicate script. Elias, I know you'll never forgive him. I know your heart is full of storms. But I also know this. Tariq loved us both. And when I'm gone, I need you to remember that love is not always clean. It is not always fair. He did not betray you, my brother. He simply couldn't choose between the two people who owned his heart. I know you will walk away, but don't burn what you built together. That was not mine. That was yours, and his. If you ever forgive him, give him this letter. If you don't, bury it with me. Clara couldn't breathe. Ayaan reached out, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. She knew everything, Clara whispered. The conflict, the pain. She tried to make peace, even as she was dying. Tariq sat down slowly, visibly shaken. I never knew she wrote that. She never told me. Clara looked at him. You said you loved her. With every breath I had, he said quietly. And I loved your grandfather too, in a different way, but just as deeply. He was my brother in every sense but blood. You lost them both, she murmured. He nodded, because I was too proud to speak, and Elias was too hurt to listen. A long silence filled the room, heavy with decades of regret. Later that evening, Clara sat alone in the garden. The letter was folded beside her, and her grandfather's journal rested in her lap. She flipped to the final page. If I could speak to Tariq again, I would not shout. I would ask him if he loved her. I would ask him if he's proud of what we built, even now. But mostly, I would ask if he remembers that we started with nothing and found everything in each other. Her chest ached. She looked up at the stars, above the villa, blinking back tears. She hadn't just inherited wealth. She had inherited wounds, and now she had to decide what to do with them. Inside the villa, Ayaan and Tariq spoke quietly in the study. She's stronger than I thought, Ayaan said. Tariq nodded. She reminds me of Elias, but she's more open, more willing to heal. Ayaan hesitated. And what about the company? I've made it clear. She has a right to her share, and her voice. But don't treat her like a figurehead, Ayaan. She's not decoration. She's the storm and the calm. Ayaan stared at the empty chair Clara had just left. I've already learned that the hard way. That night, as Clara prepared for bed, she heard a soft knock at her door. She opened it to find Ayaan, holding 2 cups of tea. You didn't think I'd let you process this alone, did you? She smiled, letting him in. They sat on the couch, together, silent at first, sipping slowly. Then Clara whispered, I don't know how to carry all this. You don't have to, Ayaan said. We'll carry it together. He reached for her hand, this time without hesitation. And for once, Clara didn't pull away. They sat like that for a long time. No deals, no documents, just 2 people, tangled. In legacy, choosing connection over distance. Choosing truth over silence. The following morning, Clara awoke to the sound of soft humming in the villa's hallway. She padded barefoot to the source, pausing as she reached the study. The door was cracked open. Inside, Tariq sat at a desk, leafing slowly through old photographs. His back was slightly hunched, and the early morning sun cast a long shadow across the room. He didn't see her. She watched for a moment, her heart quietly aching. Then she turned away. She had her own reckoning to face. An hour later, Ayaan found her on the terrace. She was dressed, packed, and standing with her suitcase beside her. Leaving already? He asked, frowning. I need space, she said softly. Time to think, to breathe, to figure out who I am in the middle of all of this. You don't have to run, he said. I'm not running, she replied. I'm reclaiming. He paused. Is this about the company? It's about everything. My grandfather, the journal, Layla's letter, the weight of this inheritance, and you. He looked pained. Clara, I need to know that I'm not just a story you're trying to rewrite, that I'm not a patch on your legacy's broken wall. You're not, he said fiercely. "You're the first real thing I've felt in years. But I don't want to be someone you feel. I want to be someone you choose. Without guilt, without history, without obligation." He took a step toward her. "I do choose you." "Then let me choose myself first," she whispered. And with that, she turned and walked through the arched gate. Back in New York, Clara felt like she was floating in someone else's life. The company board had called an emergency meeting regarding the transfer of shares. Some members were supportive, others were not. "She's inexperienced," one executive said bluntly. "She's emotional. She's a risk." Clara listened without speaking, until they asked for her statement. She stood, calm and unshaken. "My name is Clara Monroe, but you know me now as the granddaughter of Elias Nassar, co-founder of what would eventually become a cornerstone of this empire. I don't need your approval to exist here, but I am offering something better than legacy. I'm offering vision." They stared, waiting. "I've spent my life studying the bridge between cultures. Now I want to build one. A foundation to support immigrant entrepreneurs, a scholarship for women in Middle Eastern studies, programs that tie the heart of this company back to its roots." A long pause. Then slow nods, murmurs of approval. Even the critics didn't argue. After the meeting, she stepped into the hallway and let out a long, shaking breath. That's when she saw Rami standing nearby with a slight smile. "He'd be proud of you," he said. She swallowed hard. "Which one?" "Both of them." That evening, she returned to her tiny apartment in Brooklyn. The space felt even smaller than before, cramped with books and memories and dreams that suddenly felt too big for these walls. She sat on the floor, opened her laptop, and typed out the first lines of a proposal titled The Layla Initiative. Ayaan hadn't called. He hadn't texted. She wasn't sure if that hurt or relieved her. 3 days later, a package arrived. No note, just a small leather-bound book. Inside were records. Company memos, photos. A handwritten letter from Ayaan. "Clara, I've spent my life leading with precision, with logic, with strategy. And then you arrived, with history in your eyes and truth in your voice, and nothing has felt predictable since. You asked me to choose. I'm choosing. Not because of legacy, but because you've reminded me that empires mean nothing if they lose their soul. When you're ready, I'll be waiting. Yours." Clara pressed the letter to her chest. She closed her eyes. She didn't know exactly what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going back to being small. Not anymore. Clara Monroe didn't return to Al-Zahiri International with an apology. She returned with a blueprint. In her hand, a 10-page proposal for a legacy initiative. On her shoulder, a messenger bag stuffed with research, data, scholarship models, and handwritten notes from her grandfather's journal. She didn't knock. She walked straight into the boardroom where the executive team had gathered for their quarterly vision review. The room fell silent. Some raised eyebrows. Others shifted uncomfortably. But no one interrupted her. "Ladies and gentlemen," Clara said, placing the folder in front of them. "This company was built on the backs of 2 men who believed in more than money. One taught me how to read poetry before I could spell my name. The other just gave me the tools to bring that legacy back to life." She locked eyes with the room. The Layla Initiative is more than charity. It's strategy. It honors where this empire came from and invests in where it's going. Someone coughed quietly. Another cleared their throat. And then, a single clap. Rami. Soon joined by others. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. The foundation would launch in 6 months. Clara would lead it. On her terms. Later that evening, Rami met her in the hallway holding a slim envelope. "He wanted you to have this," She took it slowly. Inside was a rooftop keycard and a note in Ayaan's handwriting. Meet me where it all began. The sky was blushing pink and orange when Clara stepped onto the rooftop of the Al-Zahiri Tower. The garden was still there. The lanterns, the jasmine, the silence, and Ayaan, standing at the railing, gazing out at Manhattan as if weighing the city in his palm. He turned when he heard her steps. I didn't know if you'd come, he said. I didn't know either, she replied. A beat passed between them. Then another. I read your proposal, he said. Every word. And? It's the best thing that's happened to this company in 5 years. She gave a small surprised laugh. You didn't even try to argue. I've spent too much of my life arguing, he said, and not enough listening. He stepped closer. No more contracts, no more expectations. Just this. If you're still willing, I want to build something with you. Clara looked at him, really looked. The man who once barked orders, now standing in front of her with open hands and unguarded eyes. She smiled softly. You used to be the storm, and you used to be the translator, he said. Now look at us. He reached out slowly. She didn't hesitate. Their hands met. And this time, when he leaned in, the kiss wasn't hesitant or careful. It was full, warm, and true. A declaration. As the sky darkened and city lights blinked to life, they sat on the rooftop couch, her head on his shoulder, his fingers loosely laced with hers. I'm not perfect, he said into her hair. Good, she murmured. Neither am I. He chuckled. You're impossible, she smiled. You're predictable. Together, they watched the night take shape. Two legacies intersecting, rewriting what had once been broken, and beginning something entirely new. 3 weeks later, Clara Monroe stood in front of a door with her name on it, Director, the Layla Initiative. The letters gleamed in gold against frosted glass. Beneath it, the Al-Zahiri International emblem curved with quiet elegance, an olive branch wrapped around the globe. She reached for the handle, hesitated, then smiled and pushed it open. The space inside was everything she'd dreamed. High, ceilings, warm lighting, shelves filled with books and cultural artifacts, soft carpets, and windows that stretched across the skyline. A wall of framed photos was already being assembled. Images of women, scholars, immigrant families, poetry, readings, scholarship recipients, a living tribute. It didn't feel like a corporate office. It felt like a heartbeat. That morning, she held her first team meeting. Young, eager minds from different backgrounds, artists, organizers, translators, business strategists, all ready to build something new. Something sacred. She opened with no fanfare. My name is Clara Monroe, she said. And before I inherited anything, I was a broke grad student translating poetry for coffee money. A few chuckles. She continued, This initiative isn't about image. It's about impact. And the only way we honor the people who built this ground is by lifting others onto it. Applause followed. Not loud, but real. Later, as the team filtered out, Ayaan slipped in, holding 2 iced coffees. Thought you might be too busy to break, he said. I'm always too busy, she replied, taking the cup. That's why I delegate now. He sat on the edge of her desk, watching her tuck a photo into a silver frame. Her grandfather, Layla, and a young Tariq in Lebanon, their smiles wide, their future unknowingly fragile. They'd be proud of you, Ayaan said. She looked up. You think so? I know so. He pulled a folder from his coat pocket. What's that? She asked. A list of new ventures the board's reviewing. One caught my eye. A women-led tech startup in Amman. They need investors. Clara leaned forward. Middle Eastern founders? He nodded. Bilingual, with a focus on educational platforms. Perfect, she said. Let's offer them our mentorship program. If they accept, we bring them in under the Layla initiative. He grinned. That's exactly what I was thinking. She narrowed her eyes. Are you enjoying this? Very much, he admitted. More than I thought I would. That night, Ayaan invited her to his apartment. Not the cold, glass-covered penthouse she imagined, but a quieter, more lived-in space on the Upper West Side. Shelves of old business books. A Persian rug. A piano tucked in the corner. You play? She asked. Only badly, he said. But sometimes when the world's too loud. She wandered to the window, overlooking the city. He joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You still surprise me, she whispered. Good, he said into her neck, because I plan to do it for a long time. She turned, kissed him gently, then deeper, no longer tentative, no longer afraid. Later, wrapped in blankets on the couch, Clara opened her grandfather's journal again. This time not for answers, but for grounding. I think I'm ready, she said. Ayaan looked at her. For what? To stop living in their story, she said, and start writing mine. The day of the official launch of the Layla initiative arrived with more buzz than Clara expected. Press, influencers, industry leaders, scholars, a handful of curious critics. The venue, a newly renovated gallery space in Midtown, transformed into a warm, modern tribute to cultural resilience. The walls were lined with quotes in Arabic, Urdu, Farsi, and Swahili. Photos of immigrant entrepreneurs and students. Digital screens looping footage from Clara's first site visits to the Foundation's pilot projects. It wasn't flashy. It was meaningful, and it had Clara's fingerprints all over it. Ayaan stood near the back of the room, uncharacteristically quiet in his tailored navy suit. He watched as Clara moved gracefully from guest to guest, confident, composed, and radiant in an emerald green dress that brought out the fire in her eyes. He had seen her in a dozen roles: scholar, translator, strategist, storm. But this version, this leader with purpose, took his breath away. Rami leaned in beside him. She's built something, beyond all of us. Ayaan nodded. She's become exactly who she was meant to be. Clara stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room. The murmurs softened, the lights dimmed. She stood at the podium with no notes, only her truth. Thank you all for being here today, she began, voice clear and grounded. This isn't just the launch of a program. It's the rebirth of a promise. She paused, scanning the crowd. My grandfather, Elias Nassar, came to this country with two things: a suitcase full of books and an unshakable belief in the power of language. My great-aunt, Layla, gave her life to the idea that love could survive even the deepest divides. Her voice tightened, then steadied. This initiative is for them, and for every dreamer who was told to wait, for every woman who was underestimated, for every child of two worlds who was told they had to choose only one. The applause was thunderous. Clara stepped down from the stage, feeling like her bones were humming with electricity. Ayaan met her at the side, offering no words, just his hand. She took it without hesitation. Later, after the crowd had thinned and the champagne had run out, they returned to the rooftop where everything had first shifted. The skyline glittered beneath them. Ayaan loosened his tie and leaned against the railing. Do you ever think about how all of this started? Clara joined him. Me barging into your office covered in coffee? He smirked. And correcting my Arabic? She laughed. You needed it. He turned serious. You still do that. Keep me sharp. She faced him fully now. What happens next, Ayaan? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black box. Clara froze. He opened it. Inside was not a ring, but a delicate gold pendant, inscribed in Arabic. 2 hearts. 1 purpose. "I don't want to rush you," he said, "or pressure you. But I know what I feel, and I know who I want by my side." She took the necklace carefully. "I'm not saying yes to forever," she whispered. "Not yet." He smiled. "That's okay. I just want you to keep choosing me, day by day." She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. "Then I will, starting now." They kissed under the stars, the city spread beneath them. And though no promises were spoken, something between them had already been made. For the first time in weeks, Clara took a full weekend off. No meetings, no events, no public appearances, just her favorite oversized sweater, takeout from a Lebanese bakery in Queens, and a stack of letters from the first recipients of the Layla Initiative. She read each one slowly. Some wrote in perfect English, some mixed in Arabic, Pashto, Spanish. Some wrote nothing at all, just drawings, photos, or scribbled thank you notes. Each one was proof that the work mattered, that her grandfather's words had not faded, that her place in the world had finally found its shape. Ayaan arrived on Sunday morning with 2 cups of cardamom coffee and a bag of fresh figs. "I thought I was the one with the billionaire schedule," she teased as he stepped into her apartment. "Cancelled a strategy session," he said, setting the cups down. "Told them the only strategy I care about today involves figs and poetry." She raised an eyebrow. "Did you just quote Rumi?" He kissed her on the forehead. "Possibly." They spent the morning curled up on her worn-out couch, reading pages from her thesis and laughing over Ayaan's surprisingly terrible attempts at translating modern Arabic slang. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder, eyes closed. "You ever wonder what life would have been like if none of this had happened?" she asked. "If you hadn't spilled coffee all over your blouse and stormed into my office?" She smiled. "Exactly." "You would have still changed lives," he said without hesitation. "With or without me." Her eyes opened. "That's the first time you've said that." He looked at her, sincere. "I've always believed it. I just needed to say it out loud." She nodded, touched. Because sometimes love wasn't flowers or rings or fire. Sometimes it was showing up. Saying the hard things, letting someone be whole without needing to be needed. That night, they stayed at his apartment. She wandered into his home office, tracing her fingers along the shelf of books. Business theory, memoirs, scattered with well-worn volumes of Arabic literature she'd gifted him over the past few months. One book lay open on the desk, her grandfather's journal. Clara stilled. "You've been reading it?" she asked as Ayaan entered behind her. "Every night," he said, softly. "I feel like I'm still getting to know him, through you." She turned. "He would have liked you, eventually." Ayaan chuckled. "That's generous." "No, really. He liked people who asked difficult questions, and who loved language, and who admitted when they were wrong." "I'm working on that last part." She stepped toward him. "You're doing fine," she whispered. And then, just like that, the space between them vanished. The kiss was deeper this time, not urgent, but steady, certain. The kind of kiss you give when there are no more games to play, no more masks to wear, just 2 people choosing each other. In the quiet that followed, wrapped in sheets and half asleep, Clara murmured, "Do you still feel like you're building an empire?" Ayaan pulled her closer. "No," he whispered. "I feel like I'm building a life." She pressed her cheek to his chest. "Good." Because for the first time, so was she. The boardroom at Al-Zahiri International was buzzing again. But this time, not with whispers about inheritance or scandal. This time, it was anticipation. At the center of the room sat a polished oak table. On it, 2 thick legal folders rested side by side, one with Clara Monroe's name embossed in gold, the other with Ayaan al-Zahiri's. Clara entered in a tailored black suit and soft green blouse, the color of quiet confidence. Her heels clicked, lightly across the marble floor, her stride measured, eyes calm. No longer the assistant, no longer the girl with the stained blouse and a desperate need for a job. She was here now as an equal, a voice of vision, a force of change. Ayaan stood as she approached. "Ready? Are you?" He smiled. "Always, when you're across the table." They both sat. Rami stepped forward to present the documents. "The official partnership contract for the Layla Initiative," he said, placing it before Clara. "And the newly amended charter for Al-Zahiri International, recognizing her as a founding stakeholder and director of legacy operations." No one in the room dared to challenge it. Not anymore. Clara picked up the pen first, signed without hesitation. Ayaan followed. 2 signatures, side by side. After the meeting, they stepped into a smaller lounge where the press couldn't reach them. Clara leaned back on the leather couch, her voice lighter now. "You know, 6 months ago, I thought I'd be defending my thesis in a coffee-stained dress and praying for a fellowship offer." Ayaan sat beside her, turning slightly to face her. "Instead, you're reshaping the future of a billion-dollar enterprise." She mock-sighed. "And I didn't even finish my thesis." "I'll hire a ghostwriter," he teased. She elbowed. "Him." "Absolutely not. I'll finish it when I'm ready, on my own." "Fair." A beat. Then Ayaan pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Clara froze. "Ayaan." "Don't worry," he said, opening it slowly. Inside was not a ring, but a set of antique gold cufflinks, etched with an Arabic inscription. She recognized the phrase immediately. "Strength is knowing when to be still." "My mother gave these to my father before their first major expansion," he explained. "I've kept them, but I never wore them." "Why now?" she asked. "Because for the first time, I know what legacy actually means." He placed one in her hand. "Keep one," he said. "We're building this together." Clara held the cufflink tightly, emotions rising like a tide. "I thought I had to earn my way here." "You did," he said gently. "But not by proving yourself to me. By becoming exactly who you are." That evening, at the gala celebrating the initiative's formal launch, Clara stood beside Ayaan, not as his guest, not as his employee, but as his partner. The crowd parted around them like water. He leaned in. "You realize we've become the kind of couple people write articles about." She smirked. "That explains the sudden uptick in flattering media coverage. Or maybe it's just that they finally see what I've seen all along." "What's that?" "That you were never small," he whispered. "They just didn't know how to look at you." Clara's smile faded. Not from sadness, but from something deeper. Love. Real, grounded, impossible to ignore love. And when he reached for her hand in front of hundreds of flashing cameras, she didn't flinch. She held it tightly, not just because it was love, but because it was a partnership of power, of purpose, of choosing each other again and again and again. 3 weeks after the launch gala, Clara found herself walking through a dusty warehouse in the industrial district of Boston, far from the polished conference rooms and sleek rooftops she now frequented. Ayaan walked beside her, suit jacket slung over his shoulder, sleeves rolled up. His tie was gone, replaced by the casual confidence of a man stepping into old ground with new eyes. "This place used to be part of the original Nassar and Husseini trade route," he explained. "Textiles came through here. Instruments, spices, books, Your grandfather and my uncle built their dream right here. Clara brushed her hand over a faded wooden crate stamped in Arabic. It smells like old cinnamon and history, she murmured. I had it preserved, Ayaan said. They wanted to tear it down 5 years ago. I stopped it. I didn't know why at the time. Now I do. Clara turned to him. You want to restore it? He nodded. As a cultural center, a living museum, a place where people can walk through our shared history and see where we're going. She stepped into the center of the space, turning slowly in a circle, sunlight beaming through old skylights above her. It's beautiful, she whispered. And it's broken. Like us, he replied quietly. She looked back at him. We're not broken, not anymore, he said, but we come from fracture, from silence, from secrets. That's why this matters. Clara walked back to him and gently placed her palm against his chest. Then let's build it. Together. As something new. Not just a restoration of the past, but a rewriting of it. He smiled. And for once, it wasn't the closed corporate version. It was warm, soft, real. I've already drawn up the initial sketches, he admitted. Want to see them? Only if we hang them in my new office, she teased. Back in New York, they spread out the plans on the long oak table in Clara's apartment. Blueprints, community rooms, reading lounges, a scholarship office, a coffee stall with Arabic blends and cardamom pastries, a gallery for immigrant artists, a performance stage for storytellers. This isn't just a building, Clara said. It's an archive of voices. He watched her speak, his heart full in his chest. You realize I fell for you long before you knew it, he said. She arched a brow. When? The day you corrected my Arabic and didn't apologize for it. She laughed, leaning across the table to kiss him. I fell for you, she whispered. When you didn't fire me after that. That night, they stayed up late on the floor, surrounded by blueprints and books and dreams. Clara read aloud from her grandfather's journal. Ayaan added notes to the margins, ideas, expansions, names of partners who could help. It wasn't romantic, in the traditional sense, but it was intimacy in motion, 2 minds syncing, 2 hearts writing plans with the rhythm of memory and hope. Before dawn, Clara stood by the window, watching the city glow. Ayaan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. I want to ask you something, he said quietly. She turned. If it's a ring, save it. I'm not there yet. He laughed. It's not a ring. Then ask. Will you move in with me? Clara tilted her head. To the penthouse? No. To the brownstone I just bought in Brooklyn. Close to your old place. Big kitchen. Garden. Room for books. Her eyes widened. You bought a brownstone? For us. She paused, then smiled. I'll pack in the morning. Rain drizzled softly outside the brownstone windows as Clara unpacked, the last of her boxes. The space already felt like home. The living room was filled with mismatched pillows, worn books, framed black and white photos of her grandfather and Layla, and a growing stack of foundation applications. Ayaan had set up his workspace in the sunroom, where he read business reports in the morning light and joined Zoom calls in bare feet, and between them, quiet, unspoken harmony, no tension, no power games, just presence. One evening, Clara sat cross-legged on the floor beside a weathered wooden trunk Ayaan had brought over from Tariq's estate. Tariq said this used to belong to your grandfather, he reminded her. It was in his Beirut office before they emigrated. She brushed away dust and clicked open the brass latch. Inside, letters wrapped in silk, a few old academic manuscripts, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope marked in fading Arabic ink. Her breath caught. For Clara, when the past finally meets her. Elias, her name, in her grandfather's handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten will, dated years before her birth. If my granddaughter ever finds this, should she ever walk in the footsteps of what I left behind, let her know that she was never meant to be ordinary. Let her know that this legacy was hers, not to inherit blindly, but to question, challenge, and reshape. My books are hers, my journals, my dreams. Let her build not a monument, but a door. Clara's throat tightened. A door, not a throne, not a company, not control. A doorway to build her own future. Tears blurred the page. She looked up to see Ayaan watching her quietly. From the doorway, she handed him the letter. He read it in silence, then folded it reverently. "You always wondered if he meant for you to have any of this," he said softly. "Now you know." She nodded. "He didn't want to bind me to his dream. He wanted me to reimagine it." "That's exactly what you're doing." Clara stood, walked over, and pressed her forehead to Ayaan's chest. "He knew me," she whispered, "even before I existed." "And he trusted you," Ayaan replied, "just like I do." That night, they brought all of Elias's old journals into the living room. Clara read aloud while Ayaan took notes. They found early drafts of business plans, a poem for Layla, notes on cultural equity, forgotten dialects, and trade principles built on integrity. Then, buried deep in the middle of a yellowed book, they discovered something unexpected. A rough sketch of the original Nassar and Husseini imports building, with annotated plans to turn it into a cultural learning center. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. "He dreamed of the exact thing we're trying to build." "He left the blueprint," Ayaan said. "He just didn't get to finish it." Clara looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Then we will." And so they did. Over the next few months, blueprints became walls. Rooms became spaces for stories. The warehouse slowly transformed into the Nassar and Husseini Cultural Center, a living, breathing tribute to the forgotten, the misunderstood, and the dreamers. Clara designed every space to speak, not just to legacy, but to love. The Nassar and Husseini Cultural Center opened quietly, with no grand ribbon cutting or flashy press event. Instead, they hosted a storytelling night. Local poets, second-generation immigrants, teenage girls in hijabs reading spoken word, grandmothers recounting how they crossed oceans with only a suitcase and hope. Clara stood in the back, her heart full, her chest tight, her eyes brimming with tears. She wasn't the star. She didn't want to be. She had built the stage. That was enough. Ayaan found her near the archive shelves, where her grandfather's journal sat in a protective display, open to his most personal page. "If you find this, Clara, live boldly, make noise, be fire wrapped in silk, and love deeply, if love ever finds you." She reached for Ayaan's hand. "I think I'm finally doing what he asked," she said. Ayaan leaned in, kissed her temple. "You're more than he ever could have dreamed." That night, Ayaan took her to the rooftop of the center, restored exactly as Elias had designed it in his journal. Terracotta tiles, jasmine vines climbing up iron arches, lanterns casting soft golden light. Clara walked to the edge, looking over the city where so much had started and nearly been lost. Ayaan followed. "I remember the first time you stood on a rooftop," he said softly. "You looked like you were carrying the weight of 100 years. I was. And now?" She turned to him. "Now I'm ready to carry the future, with someone who chooses me every day." He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "I never stopped choosing you, Clara." "I know," she whispered. And then he kissed her, but not like the first time, not cautious, not questioning. This time, it was deep, rooted, like a vow sealed by breath instead of rings. The kind of kiss that wasn't just romantic. It was recognition. You. It's always been you. When they pulled apart, Clara rested her forehead against his. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. Ayaan smiled. "Then neither am I." And together, beneath a sky full of stars and generations watching from silence, they didn't say forever. They just said yes. To now. To love. To everything still unwritten. Spring arrived in Manhattan with soft rain and sudden blooms, the streets bursting with tulips and possibility. Clara Monroe had never felt lighter. The Layla Initiative was thriving. The cultural center had a waitlist of artists and educators from around the world, and her mornings now began with cardamom coffee, shared glances across the breakfast table, and quiet kisses before board meetings. Then came the morning Ayaan made eggs. Badly. Clara watched, arms folded, eyebrows raised, as he squinted at the recipe on his phone like it was a legal contract. "You realize you own 3 restaurants, right?" she said. He cracked the egg straight onto the counter and winced. "Delegation has always been my strength." She laughed, wiping his nose with a paper towel smeared in yolk. "Stick to investments. Love." Later that week, they attended a small dinner at Tariq's home. The older man was thinner now, but stronger somehow, lighter in the way people are when they've said what needed to be said and been forgiven anyway. He raised a toast halfway through the meal. "To Elias," he said, voice thick with emotion, "and to the granddaughter who reminded us what legacy really means." Clara's eyes shimmered. Tariq turned to Ayaan with a smirk, and to the man smart enough not to let her go. Laughter broke the moment, but something inside Clara settled. Peace. Real, soul-deep peace. The proposal didn't come in a ballroom, or on a yacht, or even with a photographer hiding behind a bush. It came in the kitchen of their brownstone. She was barefoot in a t-shirt, flipping through foundation emails. He handed her a small mug that read "Boss Woman" and said, "I don't want to plan a perfect moment. I just want to build the rest of them with you." She looked up, startled. He was holding a ring. No speech. No spotlight. Just presence. Real. Certain. She blinked, then smiled, setting down the mug and stepping into his arms. "Okay," she whispered, and that was that. The wedding was small and sunlit, a rooftop in Brooklyn, strings of lights, jasmine and olive branches, a scattering of family, friends, and scholars who had once been strangers, but were now pillars of the world Clara had built. Clara wore a dress her grandfather's sister had sewn decades ago, refitted, remade, and full of memory. Ayaan wore a simple suit and an expression no one had ever seen on him before. Unfiltered joy. They wrote their own vows. Clara's voice shook as she said, "I don't vow to follow you. I vow to walk beside you, to remind you who you are when the world forgets, and to love you in every language we've ever translated." Ayaan's response was steady, grounded. "I don't vow to complete you. I vow to honor you, to keep choosing you, not as part of my empire, but as the heart of it. No fireworks, no spectacle, just tears, smiles, and applause that felt like thunder in the quietest way." Later, under the fairy lights, Clara danced with Rami, who whispered, "You? No, he was unbearable before you." She laughed. "He still kind of is. But now it's adorable." And in the final hour of the night, as guests gathered to leave and laughter floated through the garden, Clara looked at Ayaan, the man who once ruled his world with iron precision, and now held her hand like it was everything. He mouthed just 2 words. Still yes. She squeezed his hand. Always. 1 year later. The door, too. Clara's new office opened with the quiet hiss of modern hinges. She stepped inside, her heels clicking softly against marble. Sunlight poured in through arched windows, spilling across a wide desk lined with hand-carved wood and warm brass details. On the far wall, the nameplate read, Clara Nassar Monroe Al-Zahiri, Chief of Cultural Innovation, Al-Zahiri International Founder, the Layla Initiative. Below it, in Arabic calligraphy, where legacy becomes light. Outside her window, the restored Nassar and Husseini Cultural Center buzzed with life. Children wandered through language exhibits. Teachers led music workshops. Entrepreneurs pitched projects in shared studios. It was everything her grandfather had once imagined, and everything she had dared to reimagine. On her desk sat a silver-framed photo. Her grandfather and Layla, side by side in the 1960s, unaware that one day, the woman they never met would carry both of them forward, and next to it, a note from Ayaan, handwritten on parchment. Our story is not about wealth, not even about legacy. It's about the moment we chose each other over silence, over comfort, over fear. Thank you for teaching me how to love with my eyes open. A knock at the door. Ayaan entered, holding 2 cups of coffee and a baby monitor. Clara raised an eyebrow. Coffee and fatherhood? Multitasking already? He grinned. I'd conquer 3 continents for 5 minutes of sleep. She took the coffee and peeked at the monitor. Inside, their newborn daughter, wrapped in soft lavender and already wildly expressive, kicked in her bassinet. Her name's still perfect, Ayaan said. Layla Elias, Clara whispered, eyes misting. Ayaan sat on the edge of her desk and watched her with something like awe. I still can't believe I get to do this with you. Clara stood, setting her coffee aside and wrapped her arms around him. We're not doing it the traditional way, she murmured. But we're doing it right. He leaned his forehead against hers. Together. Later that afternoon, Clara stood at the front of the Foundation's newest satellite office, this one in Amman, Jordan. Virtually, of course, with students and artists beaming in from around the globe. She opened the ceremony with a message that echoed louder than any press release. Legacy isn't a throne. It's a bridge. We don't inherit power, we inherit possibility. What we build next is up to us. Applause flooded the call, and in that moment, Clara knew. She had not just rewritten her grandfather's story. She had authored her own. That evening. Back at the brownstone, Clara tucked Layla into her crib and whispered, You come from dreamers, little one, but you don't owe us anything. All I want is for you to find your voice and use it. In the quiet, she could hear Ayaan in the kitchen, humming off key while burning toast again. She smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because everything was finally hers. Her life, her love, her legacy. Chosen, built, and beautifully lived.